Welcome back to Yunami. The following is very important for this Boruto Two Blue Vortex video, but don't take it too seriously in relation to real life. To make this Boruto explanation easier to grasp, let me take you on a quick off-topic journey. You will see in a moment why this is so extremely important for Boruto. Are you familiar with the conspiracy theory that we all live in a simulation? Not a digital one, but a social one, where society is trapped in a metaphorical matrix. In this system, while not directly manipulating every normal person with false information, everything around us is designed in such a way that we manipulate ourselves. This is achieved by being confronted with certain conflicts that they themselves artificially create to control the masses. The purpose is to make us form our own opinions independently, faking freedom of choice. However, the options between which you can choose are predetermined, so you can only ever choose one of two sides. Of course, it's questionable whether that's actually the case in our world. I'm not promoting any ideas here. But what this principle, very old principle, divide and conquer, allows is a wonderful literary tool. With it, for example, a manga creator can make characters in their story, and also the readers think certain things. This way the creator can then calmly and extremely obviously build the plot right under our nose, and we don't notice it. The plot twist then becomes a direct slap in the face. Yeah, I just slapped myself. And I think that's what happens in Boruto, which will lead to one of the biggest plot twists in manga history. And it all has to do with Amado and his own matrix. There are many aspects to consider, but in today's Boruto video I show you why Kawaki has two hair colors and what it has to do with Sasuke's and Naruto's DNA. I will also explain why Amado is behind all this and why Kawaki might not be a real human, but an artificial one turned into a cyborg. A significant difference to normal cyborgs, especially in terms of his mental control and all his memories. As we had seen with Delta, let's talk about it. Before we start, if you enjoy and appreciate my style and theories, I would be really grateful if you could leave a like. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing. This helps me to make better videos for you in return. Without further ado, let's begin. I think everyone remembers the moment when the first Boruto chapter was released, with the legendary first scene showcasing Boruto and Kawaki on the Hokage stones, fighting each other. Yeah, hype. We all instantly got two ideas. First of all, it clearly looked like a Naruto Sasuke situation all over again, where Boruto and Kawaki have that brotherly rivalry, but one of them goes down the wrong path and the other one tries to save them, and indeed it really does look like that so far. The second and much more prominent, intriguing and exciting aspect was the fact that we all immediately wondered why Kawaki had not only two hair colors, but also two hairstyles, separated by the hair colors. You know, if it would at least blend into one style, that would be almost acceptable, but come on, who's growing natural hair like that? There's no way. And as if that wasn't weird enough, what really made it bizarre is the fact that both hair colors and hairstyles more or less fit Naruto's short hair in Boruto, as well as Sasuke's messy hair. Is that a coincidence right after the Naruto series with both Naruto and Sasuke being the main characters? Kawaki looked and still looks, in fact, more than ever now after the time skip, like Sasuke and Naruto, literally like a mix. Maybe not necessarily in all aspects, but it's undeniable that he resembles them both so much that we all had the same idea upon looking at this character design. Back in the days when Boruto was released, we couldn't really get our heads around the idea of why exactly that was the case. We speculated about things like a clone or something similar, but at that time, we simply had no evidence. Now, however, we should actually be able to understand pretty much to the tiniest detail who and what Kawaki actually is or could be. So let's start with the most obvious aspect, his origin, especially his time in the Kara organization. But I would like to start with Amado and the fact that almost everyone in Kara was his cyborg. The problem with this is that because they are all cyborgs, we don't really know anything about their past. And the things we do know could easily be not true. Let me explain. What is a cyborg? A cyborg is a combination of cybernetic and organism. It's a being with both organic and biomechatronic body parts. In contrast to androids, the term cyborg implies to a living organism that has restored function or enhanced abilities due to the integration of some artificial component. So the key to understanding is that as long as the transformation began from a human body, it doesn't matter what exactly is being changed to be considered a cyborg or how much. This means the cyborg doesn't have to be alive in the traditional sense. It also implies that theoretically, the person who initially was the cyborg before the transformation doesn't have to be alive anymore either, or have anything to do with a person. It's all about the body, the organism. For example, we have clones that are cyborgs. You can't say they aren't cyborgs just because they are artificial, nor can you argue that cyborgs are only real humans. There's a pretty big spectrum to what can be considered a cyborg. Why that is important to consider is the fact that artificial humans don't have real memories. So there is a difference between artificial cyborgs like clones, for example Delta and Koji, or Demon and Ada, who claim to be actually alive and are not clones, that is, have real memories. Whether that is true or not doesn't matter. I don't think it's true. I believe they are all artificial, and if lucky, they are clones at best. Just look at Delta. She didn't start from zero, developing all life experience herself, forming her own personality and all that. As Amado admitted himself, there's nothing about her that is even remotely like her daughter Akebi. And yet, she's alive. She's a clone, a real human. Artificial but real, but also modified, and with that not only a clone but also a cyborg. So to be a cyborg doesn't mean that you have free will. Anyone can manipulate or control certain body parts, including the brain, if that's part of the design. And there's no way for the cyborgs to know. In fact, Amado has confirmed that he can actually deactivate Kawaki, I think even with a voice command. Kawaki is nothing without Amado. That speaks to the possibility that Kawaki isn't just a human with a little bit of modification here and there, but it literally implies that Kawaki doesn't have control over his own body. Remember how Amado was able to shut down Delta with just his voice? Exactly, Delta is nothing without Amado. She's an empty shell with a little bit of artificial intelligence, a reference to the Delta learning rule in artificial intelligence, written on her memory stick inside the drone. If you were to destroy the drone, the computer, and any possible backup, she will just be a cyborg shell, a body, nothing more. But here's the thing, Kishimoto made it extremely complex to find out the truth. Look, although Delta isn't listening to Amado, which implies that he has no control over any of his cyborgs, she still does whatever he wants her to do. However, it appears to be her own decision, which implies that Amado might be doing the same thing with all other cyborgs, all of whom hate Amado more than anyone else. Isn't that weird? Not a single cyborg who likes him? I mean, aside of Koji. Yet, considering how Delta nonetheless does whatever Amado wants, we must assume the same for all the cyborgs. It just looks natural, when it's not. So what exactly is Amado manipulating? His cyborgs? Or the circumstances? Or both? And who is being manipulated in the first place? His cyborgs? Everyone else? We readers? The specific circumstances of the cyborgs and their personalities together seem to create random events surrounding them, making them feel forced, or rather willing, to do exactly what they believe they want for themselves, while everyone else is concluding certain beliefs about Amado based on what the cyborgs do, which is why Amado is more or less trusted. The same goes for Koji. In reality, what they think they want is actually what Amado made them want, while he's also controlling the events in the world according to what he wants the cyborgs to do, so that it looks natural. And all this is just so nobody sees that in reality he's the one working towards doomsday for some reason. We have literally Satan sitting among us and we don't even notice it. In fact, I believe everything is a distraction Kishimoto throws at us and the people in Boruto to make us and them believe that they, that is the cyborgs, have indeed free will, by making every one of his cyborgs aside of Koji extremely rebellious and hateful against Amado. So obvious, but why? Because that's the only way he could do everything he did without anyone suspecting that all his cyborgs do exactly what he pre-programmed them to do. This is also exactly why the majority trusts Koji, because wow, he's so nice. When all the other cyborgs are so mean, he must be a good person. Yeah, alright, just wait. I mean, it goes so far that many assume that Koji simply tricked Amado and Amado believes Koji is dead, like oh my god. That couldn't be further from the truth. He is literally literally a cyborg. Of course Amado sees if he's functioning and where he is, what he says, what he sees, maybe even controls exactly what he does. Let's not be naive. The fact that he didn't shut down Koji proves that Boruto is doing what Amado wanted him to do. Hence, the wish Kawaki had for Ada was also not a coincidence. Or take for example Code. We have to consider the fact that he's just a cyborg like anyone else, apparently. He isn't a clone, and Amado didn't make it seem as if he could deactivate him, so he's apparently more human or at least more in control than Kawaki. This leads us to conclude on our own that Amado has no control over Code's decision. But let's just for a moment discard the naive belief and assume that Amado is actually able to deactivate Code, just like he's able to deactivate any other of his cyborgs, including Koji, Demon and Ada, and Kawaki. What does this tell us about Amado, especially the scene in which he made it seem as if he's so defenseless and can be kidnapped and controlled by Ada? Oh man, poor Amado, am I right? Wrong, and so wrong. Dangerously wrong. If you believe Amado didn't have the choice, you won't be able to predict Boruto, period. You walked right into the trap. Of course, all this would naturally imply that he got purposely kidnapped so that Ada would have a reason to go to Konoha, and Konoha would have a reason to invite Ada. He is playing both sides. Welcome to the Matrix, at least in Boruto. So this means Kawaki was dropped off near Konoha because Amado wanted Ada to go to Konoha. So it was never really about Kawaki but Boruto, so that Kawaki would make Naruto disappear and change reality, leading Boruto and Sasuke to leave, resulting in Sasuke being absorbed by the 10 tails and Koji becoming Boruto's master. And so we all think Koji is such a nice person. I mean, we all agree that Amado chose Koji to be Jiraiya's clone so that he would have an emotional tool to get Naruto on his side. But we just ignore the idea that Kishimoto is doing the exact same thing with us, not only to Naruto but to us fans. We are literally being fooled with the love we have for Jiraiya so that we don't see Doomsday coming. It's amazing. Long story short, Kawaki is a cyborg controlled by Amado. The fact that Amado has control over Kawaki's brain just as he does with the Delta means that he could possibly do the same thing as he did and does with the Delta, which is updating his mind. We don't know the extent of Amado's control, but from Delta we understand that he can implant fake memories in them. Yes, that's another trick Amado with the help of Kishimoto employs. He tells us that he gives Delta the real memories of his daughter, even if that's true, they are still fake, artificial. He could literally create an army of Deltas all have the same memories. In this case, would you still consider Delta to be a real person with real memories? She didn't create those memories. We don't even know if the story of his daughter is real. He tells us those are real memories, just like Ada tells us that Amado's story is correct, when in reality we don't know anything about how Ada's brain works and what precautions Amado took. It's very simple, everything Amado says is a lie, and that's where the whole problem becomes apparent. After Kawaki woke up from the liquid thing, I highly doubt he felt the need to talk about his memory with anyone, so we don't know whether everything we saw from his past and his memory flashbacks is actually true. He certainly didn't talk about it with Jigen so that Jigen would wonder why that kid has memories that never happened. And why would Kawaki even question his memories anyway? Imagine the memory you have right now is not true. How can you know that? It's just normal to assume that your memory is true, but maybe you're just a cyborg and woke up today. And so what if Kawaki's memories aren't true and he's just a made-up person that Amado strategically placed in Kara so that he can become Ishiki's vessel? He probably did the same with Code, in which case the white karma isn't a real thing either. Or rather, it's definitely real, but it's not what we believe it is. It's just something Amado made up to use Code for certain tasks. For example, creating a hologram of Ishiki to make Code use the 10 tails. Both Kawaki and Code could be artificial humans who never lived the lives they remember. Similar to many characters in Boruto actually, so the idea isn't that far-fetched. But that would imply that he is most likely based on a DNA code from someone who was once alive. So his creator, likely Amado, would have had to pick certain DNA from somewhere to create whatever his goal was. It seems that he intended to make Kawaki pretty powerful, so powerful DNA is required. And that plotline is actually nothing new either. Everything in Naruto repeats itself in Boruto. Back then Hashirama cells were the most popular DNA. Now it's no longer Hashirama and Madara are the strongest shinobi who ever lived, but Naruto and Sasuke the strongest humans who ever lived. So it's only normal that whoever created Kawaki would focus on the prime powers of the world. Everyone has heard of their legendary fight. Just as everyone has heard of the legendary fight between Hashirama and Madara, especially because it's the exact same location. So after the biggest war the world has ever seen, people heard of the fight between Naruto and Sasuke, especially because Sasuke pretty much promoted it with his missing arm and world expedition. If Amado intended to get the DNA of both Naruto and Sasuke, all he had to do was go to this place and just take a few samples. Easy. Of course it could be much more complex, assuming that the whole Kaguya plot and ninja war were actually manipulated by whoever is trying to revive Shibai, for example. #Matrix. In that case, maybe Amado is manipulated by someone else and didn't have to find out about this fight, but knew that this would happen and actually waited somewhere to collect his samples. The point is, everything that happened in the last few chapters of Naruto from the moment Kaguya arrived was actually done so that the Boruto series could happen. And the final scene between Naruto and Sasuke happened to leave behind a lot of DNA, which is why Kawaki has two hair colors, which makes absolutely no sense for a normal person, but it happens frequently with Amado cyborgs due to having more than two DNAs. So they are likely clones rather than human cyborgs. We have Code with red and white hair, implying possible Uzumaki DNA. So Amado possibly already has the Uzumaki DNA, maybe it's the same DNA he collected from Naruto and Sasuke. Everything fits perfectly together. So I guess it's not really a question anymore whether this is true, but much more why. It's clear that if Amado is really responsible for everything that is happening, then he included Sasuke and Naruto into his plan from the beginning. Especially because they were the ones who had to defeat Ishiki, meaning they were definitely in his mind. Just how much and how deep is the question. If their DNA was really important for anything related to abilities, then Amado might be considering that he needs to defeat a very strong opponent so that his plan will be fulfilled. So he either plans to defeat an Otsutsuki, hence Kawaki's natural hate for Otsutsukis, or he made him so strong because he expected Boruto to become very powerful. And so he couldn't let Boruto stop Kawaki in order for Kawaki to stay alive long enough until the reincarnation of Amado's daughter takes place. He must be strong enough to stop Boruto, at least for the time being. Something like that could be a possibility. But to all that, the awakening of the Shinju just doesn't fit in. And I'm actually convinced that it was planned by Amado as well, just like the fact that Koji is now with Boruto. Of course, the Shinju could once again just be a distraction to buy even more time so that Boruto won't defeat Kawaki. But there are more possibilities. The existence of the Shinju implies the reason why Kawaki's DNA has the genetics of both Naruto and Sasuke is because Amado planned for Kawaki to first seal Naruto away and then for the Ten Tails to absorb Sasuke. Then both Naruto and Sasuke will no longer be in the spotlight, but maybe he needs their DNA at a certain moment in time for some sort of jutsu. We know that, for example, Naruto and Sasuke could together seal away Kaguya, something only Naruto and Sasuke could do. Maybe together they could free her as well, which obviously they wouldn't do voluntarily, but what if Kawaki can because of his DNA? What if Amado's daughter is actually Kaguya, and he's one of the two stone statues Kaguya visited in her dimension, who could be her parents? Who knows, maybe Shibai and his wife. I'm not saying that Amado definitely has to be Shibai, but maybe he's working together with someone in the background connected to Shibai, which is why Amado has Shibai's remains. Who knows, maybe Amado is a cyborg himself. Just think of Nagato. How he was controlling all the pains like Amado controls all the cyborgs. But Nagato's just that crippled dude, so maybe Amado's also just a controlled puppet. Just like Nagato was also controlled by Obito and Madara. There are endless possibilities. Essentially, the idea is that Naruto's and Sasuke's DNA are directly connected to Kaguya's bloodline. They are the spiritual reincarnation of Ashura and Indra, and because both are gone, maybe Amado needed a mix of both. There are many possible jutsus that only both of them together can perform. So, what do you think of this theory? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, then please leave a like. It really helps me a lot. And if you want to see more Boruto content, then definitely subscribe with the notification bell activated for more Boruto content. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye.